Hi, this is Chaplain Tyler, and you're watching this video and you got this with Tyler. I've had the privilege of being able to work in a lot of different locations and contexts, and one of the places that was my absolute favorite to work was forensic psychiatry. I had the honor of being the chaplain for one of the major Canadian cities in the unit that was designated for forensic psychiatry. Now, for those that don't know, forensic psychiatry is the place where inmates come for either assessment to see if they are fit to stand trial, mentally competent, or to see if there are mitigating factors that should and might influence their sentencing. Meaning, were they under mental compulsion, or were they experiencing psychiatric issues that forced them to, or influenced their ability to be able to choose. So it's a place where a lot of people come and they're very hurt. They've already been judged in a lot of ways by a lot of people. Most of the time they come into the unit and they are not able to function very well. In that unit, I worked with some people I never thought I would work with, and it challenged me in ways I couldn't dream. For example, I had to offer support to a young man who assaulted his own baby girl and broke 60 bones in her body. What do you do with that? How do you not judge that? I had to find a way. I had to separate out the actions of the person from the value of the person. I had to see that their identity was as a child of God, regardless of what they had done. Their actions were irrelevant. And I found that these people really appreciated and needed absolute honesty. No BS, no platitudes, no it's gonna get better, or this is happening for your own good, or anything like that. It was absolutely, that they would run the other way. They knew, because they had gone through so much, they knew that absolute, complete honesty was the only way to go. And I made a conscious choice to embrace them for who they were. So, for example, I was the only one on staff that would take time to sit with them, to be with them, to play with them. There was a foosball table, and which I was barely adequate at, but there was a ping pong table, and I happened to be pretty good at ping pong. And most people were too afraid of these inmates to really play honestly. Well, I'd come in and I would take my tie off, and I'd loosen the buttons on my shirt and roll up my sleeves, and I would just let them have it. And they loved it because I was being honest. It was a form of respect for them. So I got to know the staff quite well, and I got to know the inmates. The inmates kept coming in and out because it was not a unit where people would come and stay long. And the greatest compliment I ever got, I think, probably came from that unit when somebody got transferred from one of the maximum security prisons, came to the unit and said to the staff, "So where's this chaplain I hear about who's doing all this good stuff?" I was just trying to be a support and be the kind of person that they would trust. And it was very humbling to hear that. It was, like I said, probably the greatest compliment I ever received. Well, one day, on one of the few days that I was not on call, I believe it was a Thursday night, I got a call, personal call, from the forensic psychiatry unit. There had been someone who had unfortunately completed their own demise on the unit, and the staff were very upset. But interestingly, all the inmates were very upset as well, and they reached out to me because they trusted me, and they knew that they could call me and I would not judge them, and I would be with them, and I would make something happen. I would do something to make things better. Well, I called the chaplain on call and asked if it was okay if I go, because again, they knew me and this was a trust issue. And they said, absolutely, you go and deal with that. So I went to that hospital. I arrived about 9 o'clock or so, I think, and the crash team was there. So the crash team is the team that responds, that they're the ones that are assigned in that hospital, that if a code blue is pronounced, meaning somebody is has stopped breathing, that they would go and attend to that and try to resuscitate the person. Well, the charge nurse, the nurse who was in charge of the team, was somebody who was the charge nurse for the CCU, the cardiac care unit. And that particular nurse really didn't have a lot of time for me. I think that it's very likely that she had experience with chaplains or with pastors that were not that good, not that effective. And I don't think that she really had, she just didn't have good experiences with them. And I don't blame her. There are some good chaplains and there are some bad chaplains. And when I came to the unit, she was there, and the team was the crash team was there, and the staff were there, and all of the inmates were kind of off to the side. The room where the incident had occurred was about 2/3 the way on the right hand side in one of the rooms there. All the inmates were either way further into the kitchen area, which is at the far end, or they were gathered on the left hand side. And nobody was going around the room, and nobody was walking by it, nobody was doing anything. And I just noted it. And it makes sense, but I just noted it. And so on that particular day, on that evening, I asked what their priority was. And their priority was for me to work with the inmates. The staff, they were working through things kind of more on their own, but the inmates needed some real help. So I took the time and went over and just was with them and figured out with them kind of what the issues were and where they were at, and how well did they know this guy. The guy was really new to the unit. He had been there a couple of days, but had kept to himself. And for something like this to happen so close, because everybody's really close. I mean, they're all right there, and for it to happen right in front of them, essentially, was quite nerve-wracking, and it touched them a lot. So I worked with them and made sure that they were good, and I went to every person individually and talked to people, and also did things as a group. And I was able to come back the next morning because on the Friday mornings I led a small chapel service, and I'll tell you what I did on that Friday morning. By the time I left, the nurse had seen how much I cared and how great a difference I was able to make. And I'm not trying to claim something that isn't true. I'm also not trying to say how great I was. Not in the least. I simply did what I could, and what I did, luckily, was helpful, and the inmates all appreciated it and were in a much better, healthier place by the time that we finished, when I finished talking to everybody around 11:30 or 12. Well, that changed the perception of that charge nurse of the cardiac care unit. And from that point forward, she looked forward to my coming to the unit and helped me and gave me people to talk to, and her trust was much higher, which was great. That was an outcome that I didn't expect. On the Friday morning, and where this kind of goes, I don't want to say sideways, but it definitely took me by surprise. Friday morning, I had the chapel service, and I asked this is a rare service. I asked the staff if they wanted to participate as well in the service. In the little get-together that we had in the prayer time. And because all together we had all gone through something, and all of us needed to be able to have some closure about it. Well, one of the staff suggested to me that I should do a spiritual cleansing of the room. And I said, that's a great idea. what do I do? I had no clue. And what was also interesting was that around that entrance to the room, there was still almost like an invisible barrier. Nobody was going near that room. And I think that's why the staff member asked me to do a cleansing of some type. And so I asked what she had in mind, if there's anything, and she said, well, what some people do is they'll take salt and sprinkle that around and use that as a cleansing agent. And I thought, okay. So I went to approach the room, and the only way I can describe it is that the closer I got to that entrance, the more I almost felt a pressure. There was a pressure coming out from it, like that was coming out. It was almost in waves. It was a force. It was something almost tangible. And I had never really experienced something so spiritually powerful. There was no question that something evil had happened in that room, and that room still had the lingering presence of that evil. It's the only way I can describe it. So as the representative, the spiritual authority on that unit, what I did is knowing the authority that I had in Jesus Christ, I claimed his protection. I claimed that, and I proclaimed his presence and the cleansing power of, and again, if you're not part of this theology, that's okay. I'm just saying what I did. The cleansing power of the blood that Jesus shed for us, and the cleansing power of the Holy Spirit. And as I blessed the room and proclaimed that the evil that was there, whatever that presence of evil was, that it was to leave, and that this room was now to be holy and blessed and a place of peace, that whoever would stay there, that they would know that peace and that contentment. And I moved through the room kind of, the doorway, how do I say this? It was a very simple room. The doorway it was an L shaped, a backwards L. It went straight in and then to the left. The bed was right in front on the right-hand side, and then on the left-hand side, after a very, very small little high hallway. It wasn't really it was like an L. There was the bathroom, and it was in the bathroom that the man had committed that horrible deed to himself. And the closer I went to the place where that event had occurred the night before, the greater that presence of evil and that force that was there. And I understood that was what the inmates were feeling. Even if they couldn't articulate it, they knew something was there. The inmates, they're people. Some of them have been through some unbelievable things and have spiritual sensitivity that we cannot understand. And they knew there was something in that room that they didn't want anything to do with. So I cleansed it in Jesus' name. I followed up, came back again. I called the unit the next day just to make sure they were okay and make sure that the room was good, because they were expecting a new inmate to come. And they said absolutely everything was back to normal. They didn't feel that there was people weren't avoiding the room anymore. There was no reluctance of staff to enter the room, and the unit felt good again. Didn't feel defiled. Okay, good. And then I was back on regular shifts. I was there 2 times a week, and the next time I came by was on the Tuesday. There is a type of spiritual presence, an evil presence that is, it exists. And when different evil acts occur in different places, those places absorb the spiritual, for lack of a better term, spiritual energy. And it was startling how powerful that evil force was that was there. And it opened my eyes to a lot more of what happens around me and the need that I have to bless and to bring God's presence into a place. Because if there can be a deposit of evil in a place, that means that there can also be a deposit of blessing, of good in a place, where we feel that we go to a place and it is good and peaceful and joyful and great. That's the kind of thing that I want to spread everywhere I go. So I leave that with you because that's something that really opened my eyes and led me to seek a lot more of just what is our reality. Is it only things we can touch? Is it more than that? Is it things we can think of? Is our perception part of reality? Well, okay, that's a next step. But the next step after that is to understand that there are things that exist that we cannot regularly perceive, that are around us all the time. And the next 2 or 3 videos that I will share, I will tell you more specifically about 2 such instances that absolutely blew my mind and showed me the nature of reality is so much more than I had ever thought. In the meantime, this is Chaplain Tyler signing off. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And remember, I see you, I believe in you, I do, and you got this. Take care.